Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Śrīla-Viśvanātha-Cakravarti-Ṭhākura Virachita SRIMAN Mahaprabhoor Ashta Kaliya Lila Smarana Mangala Stotram. Shri Gauranga Mahaprabho's charanayorya sheshadibihi Sevāghamyataya svabhakta vihita sanyairya labhyate Tam tanmanasikim smrutim pratayitum bhavyam sada sattamair Naumi pratyahikam tadiya charitam Shriman Navadvipajam. The glories of the Lord's daily pastimes. Devotional service to the lotus feet of Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu is far beyond the perception of Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Sheshanagha and the rest, but it is continually indulged in by the Lord's own devotees, and it is always available to other souls as well. Now I will begin my description of the process of Manasi Seva, service to the Lord executed within the mind. This process is fit for continuous remembrance by the most virtuous sages. Therefore, I offer my most respectful obeisances to the eternal daily life and pastimes of the Lord born in Navadvipa. Ratriyante shayanoddita surasaritsnato babauya prage Purvahne svaganairla satyupavane tairbati madhyagnike Yah puryam aparahnake nija gruhe sayam gruhetan gane Shrivasasya nishamuke nishivasan gaurasano rakshatu. Brief description of his daily schedule. At the end of night before sunrise, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gets up from his bed, stretches his body, talks with his wife and washes his face. In the morning, he is massaged with oil and bathes in the celestial Ganges river, then worships Lord Vishnu, who is non-different from himself. In the forenoon period, he enjoys discussing topics about Lord Krishna with his devotees during visits to their homes. At midday, he enjoys pastimes in the gardens on the bank of the Ganges. In the afternoon, he wanders about the town of Navadvipa, sporting with all the residents. At dusk, he returns home to worship Lord Vishnu, who is non-different from himself, and perform other rituals. In the evening, he goes with his associates to the courtyard of Srivasa Pandita to chant the holy names and dance in ecstasy. And at night, he returns home to go to sleep. May this Lord Gaura protect us all. Ratriyante pika kukkutadininadam shrutva svatalpotpitaha Shri Vishnu priyaya samam rasagatam sambhashya santosyatam Ghatvan yatra darasano parivasan svatvisudautanano Yo matrati mirikshitoti muditastam gaura madhyem yaham. Period 1. Pastimes at the end of the night. At the end of the night, upon hearing the pleasant sounds made by many birds such as cuckoos, roosters and others, Shri Gaura arises from his bed. With his wife Shri Vishnu Priya, he discusses many topics concerning the transcendental mellows of their mutual loving affairs, and thus they become very pleased. Then he gets up and goes to another room, wherein he sits upon a raised sitting place and is assisted by his devotees in washing his lotus face with nicely scented water. Thereafter, he very happily visits his mother, Shri Shachi Devi, as well as other friends and relatives in the home. I meditate thus on the daily pastimes of Shri Gaura Sundara. Pratasva sariti svaparshada vrutasnatva prasunadibes Tam sampujya gruhita charuvasana srakchandanalankrutaha Krutva Vishnu samarjanadi sagano bhukvannamacham yacha Dvitram chanya gruhe sukam swapiti yastam gaura madhyem yaham. Period 2. Morning pastimes. In the morning after sunrise, the Lord goes with his associates to bathe in the Ganges river. While bathing, they also worship Mother Ganges by offering flowers, incense, and other presentations. After this, they come onto the bank of the river, where he is dressed with excellent cloth and decorated with fresh flower garlands, sandalwood paste, and other ornaments. Then they all return to his home in order to perform opulent worship of Lord Vishnu, as well as other rituals, after which they partake of the foods which were offered to Lord Vishnu. After washing his hands and mouth, Lord Gaura goes into another room to rest very happily for a while. I meditate thus on the daily pastimes of Shri Gaurahari. Purvahne shayanotitas supayasa prakshalya vaktram Bhaktai Shri Harinama Kirtana Parai Sardam Swayam Kirtayan Bhaktanam Bhavane Pichasva Bhavane Kridan Runam Vardayat Yanandam Puravasinam Yavurudatam Gaura Madhyem Yaham. Period 3. Forenoon pastimes. Upon the arrival of the forenoon period, the Lord gets up from his nap and stretches his body. Then he washes his lotus face with sweetly scented water. Meeting with his devotees, who are all very fond of chanting Shri Harinama Kirtana, he personally tastes and relishes the chanting of the holy names. Thus he sports sometimes in the homes of various devotees and sometimes in his own home. In this way, he increases the ecstatic pleasure of all the people of Navadvipa to limitless heights. I meditate thus on the daily pastimes of Shri Gaurachandra. Madhyahne sahatai svaparshadaganai sankirtayat idruram Satvaithendu gadhadara saha Śrīla-Vadhuta Prabhu Arame mrudumarutai shishiritair brungat vijairnadite Swam vrunda vipinam smaran brahmati yastam gaura madhyem yaham. Period 4. Midday pastimes. During the midday period, Lord Chaitanya continues to enjoy the performance of intensely enthusiastic chanting and dancing, surrounded by his own dear devotees, such as the moon-like Advaita Acharya, Gadadhara Pandita, and the divine madman Srila Nityananda Prabhu. Afterwards, they all wander throughout the gardens and groves on the bank of the Ganges, where they enjoy the sweet cooling breezes from the river. Hearing the pleasant sounds of the bumblebees in those gardens, the Lord remembers his own ecstatic pastimes of Radha and Krishna as they are occurring simultaneously in his own forest of Vrindavana. I meditate thus on the daily pastimes of Shri Gauranga. Yah SRIMAN aparahna kesaha ganaistaistadrushai prema vams tadrukshusvayamapyalam trijagatam sharmani vistarayan Aramat tatayeti paurajanata chakshuschakorodhupo Matradvari mudhekshito nijagruham tam gaura madhyem yaham. Period 5. Afternoon pastimes. During the splendidly beautiful afternoon period, the Lord and his devotees become equally maddened in ecstatic love. And being ornamented like this, they expand every increasing ripples of auspicious benefit for all the three worlds. In this mood, they leave the gardens and travel back towards his home. On the way, they satisfy the eyes of all the townspeople, just as the moon satisfies the chakora bird with its moonbeams. Reaching home, the Lord is lavished with loving attentions by his mother. I thus meditate on the daily pastimes of Gaura. Yastrisrotasi sayamaptani vahaisnatva pradipalibihi pushpadyaischa samarchita kalita satpattambarasragdaraha Vishnostat samayarchanam chakrutavan dipalipistai Bhukvannani suvītikam apitatatam gaura madhyem yaham. Period 6. Sunset pastimes. At dusk, the Lord bathes with his dear friends in the river Ganges, which flows in three parts. They devotedly worship the Ganges by offering ghee lamps, flowers, and other articles. Afterwards, the Lord puts on fresh silken clothes and is adorned with flower garlands and other decorations. Then he worships Lord Vishnu, who is non-different from himself, by performing the evening Aarati ceremony, offering ghee lamps and other articles. Afterwards, he and his friends partake of the foodstuffs and betel nuts that were offered to Lord Vishnu. I thus meditate on the daily pastimes of Lord Gaura Sundara. Yashri Vasa Gruhe Pradosha Samaye Yadvaita Chandradibihi Sarvair Bhakta Ganai Samam Harikata Piyushamasvadayan Premananda Samakulascha Chaladi Sankirtane Lampataha Kartum Kirtana Murdva Mudyama Parastam Gaura Madhyem Yaham. Period 7. Evening pastimes. In the evening time, the Lord goes to the home of Srivasa Pandita, accompanied by Srila Advaita Chandra and other dear associates. Meeting with the multitude of devotees, he tastes and relishes the nectar of topics concerning Lord Hari, and his mind becomes most agitated with the ecstasies of pure love of Godhead. Then, becoming very eager to relish the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord, he orchestrates the performance of intensely jubilant Sankirtana, which attains the summit of passionate glorification of the holy names. I thus meditate on the daily pastimes of Shri Gaura Sundara. Shri Vasan Ghana Avruto Nijaganai Sartam Prabhupyam Natan Uchchaisthala Mrudhanga Vadana Parairghayat Virullasayan Pramyan Śrīla-Gadadarena Sahito Naktam Vibatyadbhutam Svaghare Shayanalaye Svapiti Yastam Gaura Madhyem Yaham. Period 8. Midnight pastimes. Continuing well into the night, the Lord dances and dances in the courtyard of Srivasa, surrounded by his most intimate devotees. His most ecstatic singing is accompanied by his devotees, who are expert in playing rhythms loudly on the mridanga drums. He wanders and dances with Sri Gadadhara Prabhu in the most astonishing way throughout the night until just before dawn. Then he returns to his own home, where he retires to his bedchamber and falls asleep with his beautiful consort. I thus meditate on the daily pastimes of Shri Gaura Nataraja. Shri Gauranga Vidhosvadamani Navadvipeshta Kalodbhavam Bhavyam Bhavyajanena Gokula Vidhor Lila Smarana लीलां द्योतयदेतदत्र दशकं प्रीत्यान्वितोऽयः पठेत् तं प्रीणाति सदैव यः करुणया तं गौरमध्येऽहम्. The benefit of reciting this prayer. Shri Gauranga, the moon over Navadvipa, is manifest in his own abode during 8 periods of each day and every day. His pastimes should be remembered by meditative devotees before they remember the pastimes of Shri Krishna, the moon over Gokula. If someone lovingly reads or recites the Lord's eternal daily pastimes as they are illuminated in the 10 verses of this prayer, then the Lord is immensely pleased with that person by his own merciful compassion. I thus meditate on the daily pastimes of Sri Gaurachandra. Thus ends the translation of SRIMAN Mahaprabhoor Ashta Kaliya Lila Smarana Mangala Stotram of Śrīla-Viśvanātha-Cakravarti-Ṭhākura from Stavāmṛta-Laharī. Iti Śrīla-Viśvanātha-Cakravarti-Ṭhākura SRIMAN Mahaprabhoor Ashta Kaliya Lila Smarana Mangala Stotram. Hare Om Tat Sat.